Welcome to the Comeback Athlete Podcast. I'm your host, Blake. And today we're going to talk about how do we stay fit during the holidays. And the reason that's a big question is probably common to you and a lot of our listeners. A lot of us are going to be traveling. And that means we're going to be staying in different towns, different places, not having our gym access or our garage gym or the equipment we normally do. So how do we stay fit during that season? And that's a great question. I've worked with a lot of clients that deal with this both in the summer, holiday times, or they're a teacher and they're taking off for the summer and they have a different schedule. I've also just dealt with it with a lot of clients during the holidays. So that time of the year, I thought we would take some time to kind of digest this, think about it, and I'm going to give you guys a couple of things that I usually use with a lot of my clients. So I have a client right now, and he's an adjuster, and he had to travel the last 3 weeks through South Carolina, Florida, because of the hurricane season that just came through, and was doing a lot of insurance claims. And so we were basically learning how to program, every 3 or 4 days with him. Where are you going to be at? What's the hotel gym going to look like? If you don't have any, what's a body weight workout look like? And so we had a lot of those principles we try to keep going. But the key principle here was, okay, how do you actually follow a really good program while in that season? And the reality is that you can't, right? You can't follow a good progressive overload program that's going to get you faster or stronger or more toned or whatever, adjective you want to use there. The reality is that you actually are just practicing the habit of fitness. You're trying to do something to keep that habit of movement, that idea that exercise is a part of who you are as a person. It's a part of how you do life. It's a part of your habits. It's a part of how you process things. And because of that, you're going to do something. And this is why I tell people, even when they get, injured, let's say they break their wrist, or they, tweak something in their shoulder, and their doctor tells us that we shouldn't do anything with that shoulder for a while. Well, I'll try to convince them. Then we should run. We should squat. We should do some leg exercises. We should do some aerobic intervals on the bike. We should do something. We should even do bicep curls with the other arm, right? Why? Two things. One, there's some research that shows that you can actually still gain strength in that arm by working the other arm because of how our brain and nervous system flows and works. That's a whole nother conversation, but that would be one reason. Two, I would say the idea of doing what you can is all you have control of, and that's all you should be focused on. We sometimes stop everything when we didn't have to stop everything. We could continue to train or work out and get the benefits that bring us health and vitality, especially during the holiday season, where we're going to be more likely to eat things that don't bring as much health and vitality. And we tend to not move as much. We tend to sit, watch more TV. It gets colder, it gets darker out. We tend not to move as much. And that creates a lot of circulation issues. It creates some mental health issues. It creates dopamine issues. It creates all kinds of things. So that being said, I'm a big proponent on still training through the holidays. And this client I just mentioned earlier that was moving through was a great example of someone that I've worked with recently that we've tried to work through busy schedules. Now, this client's not always going to be on the road, right? He's currently home right now. And so his training program can look a lot more consistent from week to week to progress, get better at movements, get stronger in movements, and get, towards his goals. But what do we do for you, right? I don't know who a lot of you are that are listening. What are some key mindset ideas of how do you approach this? Well, first off, back to what I was kind of alluding to earlier, when you go on the holidays, the reason you should keep working out is not to maintain a perfectionistic idea of working out, but it's really to maintain the healthy habit of working out. So what that means is that it doesn't need to be as intense, doesn't need to be as long, it doesn't need to require as much equipment or even purpose outside of just moving. And I think that actually creates a lot more health and sanity during the holidays. that can be really challenging for a lot of us. I know it can be challenging for me. So movement is extremely important. But more than that, it's about training for what you will be training for in the new year. The person who just says, I'll, can that in until January 1st and get started then, there's a likelihood that they either aren't going to get started or they aren't creating habits now that will help those habits that they're hoping to have January 1st going forward. And that's because that person's actually dealing more with perfectionism. It's saying, I'm not going to start this unless I can do it perfectly. And people who tend to do that or have that mindset don't ever get started. So if you want to get healthy, you want to continue to maintain your healthiness, I would say do what you can, right? And three tips I typically give is if you can bring a piece, a traveling equipment with you. So like bands, light dumbbells, maybe one kettlebell, like you don't even have to have any of it, but if you can, those are helpful, right? Because they can give you a different variety of workouts that we can use. Or if you work with a coach like we have at Comeback Athlete, we can create full body weight workouts for you. And they don't need to be long to be worthwhile. I always love laughing with my clients during consults or when I've met with them in person before and just saying, isn't it amazing what you can get done in 10 minutes? That most people can go into a Globo gym and spend an hour walking around and get like hardly anything done. And I'll say that like in an arrogant, pompous way, but I say it more in a way to sober my clients to the reality of I can think about working out very differently. You don't have to spend hours on a workout for it to be effective or for it to be worth doing. The idea for most of us that are just training to feel, look, and move better are really just trying to get something that is going to get my heart rate up, going to get me sweaty, but also going to give me something that was challenging, that was hard, that like there was a part of me that didn't want to do it at some point and I kept going. And that's where the real benefit and the real mental fortitude comes in that really helps people enjoy living life through fitness. I like to say that because I think a lot of people tend to have an inappropriate relationship with fitness and they live for fitness, right? But a great coach, I once heard say, don't live for fitness, live through fitness. And I think that's just a great way to view it. And that's why it's still important to do. It's still a very important tool, as I've used in previous podcasts before, to help us with. So frame the challenge that it is difficult to work out while traveling. It's difficult to do it on the road. It's difficult to try to get something accomplished when you're with family, you're sleeping somewhere else, and you're out of your routine. But frame it in a way that you don't have to be perfect and you can get something in. And 10 minutes of running is better than not just sitting on the couch and canning it till next year, right? Or doing, 15-minute AMRAP of 10 push-ups, 15 air squats, 20 sit-ups, and 200-meter run, and you just repeat that for 15 minutes as many times as you can. You didn't need one piece of equipment. It's very kind of basic exercise for most people, and you can kind of self-pace and just kind of keep moving, and you'll get a great workout in. All right. Flexibility. I want you to think about not only that what we're about to do is challenging, but be flexible that you can do it in the morning, you can do it in the afternoon, you can do it in the evening. When you're on a holiday break, right? You fit it in where it's most convenient for you. You don't have to keep your perfect morning routine if you're a 5 a.m. person. If you can, it's great, but don't feel like you have to. Matter of fact, I would actually argue it's probably healthy during the holidays to have a little bit of a different routine at some point so that when you get back in your routine, you appreciate it. The last thing I would say is just cultivate a self-care mindset. So really think about the exercise not being something that beats you down while on the holidays, but something that gives you life, right? It should be something that makes it a little bit more enjoyable to have cookies at night and milk when you're on Christmas break with your family. It should be something that makes it a little bit more enjoyable for you to sit through a movie for 2 hours with your family and not feel like you sat all day and you didn't do anything. And now you feel anxious because you typically move a lot. So those are kind of the big ones. The key takeaways here, I really say, are focus on consistency over intensity is always a key principle, right? It's the person who can stay consistent with the habit, not necessarily the intensity of it always having to be perfectly hard or perfectly aimed at the goal, right? It's that I got there and I did something, or I created something and I still move today. That's more important, because then exercise becomes more about the the thing that I live through, not the thing I live for. And in a lot of us, it's if we're not going to win, we don't show up. Well, when did winning become a part of taking care of yourself? That's just more of a maintenance thing that we're doing. And so if we could do that well, we'll enjoy the holidays better, we'll enjoy our fitness, and it'll be easier when we come back to maintain that habit. The second thing I would say is celebrate small wins. So if you only got hiking in on your vacation, that's still movement. That's still great exercise. Hiking and some stretching. Great. I've given that as a prescription to a lot of clients that I know that, they would love to have ambition of doing these more intense workouts I could give them with just body weight. But the reality is, like, hey, if they went for a 30-minute hike and stretched and they stayed relatively good within their diet, like, they came back and they were happy and they didn't put on 5 extra pounds, and they, like, dude, thank you for coaching me. I enjoyed my vacation. It was awesome. Now let's get back after it in our normal routine. And it's not as hard coming back. So focus on the consistency over intensity, and then really celebrate those small wins. And that's going to be huge. So 3 things I would suggest that people do, and I alluded to this earlier, is, and this is kind of like where we'll land the plane for this one today, is I always say pack light and effective equipment if you can. So bands are always a really good one. Light dumbbells, things like that. If you have like an ab rollout thing, that's great. Those are easy to throw in a suitcase and bring. Make sure you know some body weight exercises. If you have a coach, obviously we'll program all that for you, but there's all over the internet. You can look this up and find it yourself if you really wanted to. It's not hard. And then commit to short workouts, right? If you want to do more afterwards, you can always do more, but you'll feel better knowing, like, hey, I'm just going to do 15 minutes of this and then I'm done. And it's like you get done that, and whoever you invited from your family to work out wants to keep going. Awesome. Let's go for a run now too. Or let's go add in this or that. And great, right? Another great illustration, I went to a wedding in Wyoming this past summer and worked out with a buddy, and we went for a run, right? It was a pretty long run for me. It was a 6 mile run. When we got back, we were like, I'm stoked. I'm ready to keep working out. We felt good. We were ready to go. And we decided to do a whole nother resistance, workout where we were doing handstand push-ups, air squats, and V-ups. And that's just how I wanted to do my vacation. That's how my buddy wanted to work out. But we had only planned the run. But when we got back, we could do more. And we had a great time I think we went to a wedding that night. So I burned a lot of calories dancing, working out, all that kind of stuff. So when I had a little bit of bourbon that night, it was not on my mind that, oh my gosh, I'm putting weight on. I felt pretty freaking good, actually. So those are some of the key ones. This is always a challenge, though, for everyone during the holidays, is how do I maintain my fitness? I would really just have that appropriate mindset that just says, you know what? I'm going to have a little bit of fun here, right? We want to enjoy our family. We want to enjoy this time. It only comes once a year. But at the same time, do a little bit of something for your health so that you are prioritizing a value that is important to you. Because if we violate the values that we believe in, we start to really get frustrated with ourselves internally. So a lot of times the mental health benefit to working out is more in our head. It's more of, I'm not going off of my values. I'm not going against something I believe in. I'm actually living that out, even if it's not in the most ideal way, right? It's like a religious person that would still meet for church if they lost their church building in a storm, right? But they get together. They can't have quite the same service. They don't have an electricity, but they get together. They pray. Someone gets up and has a sermon, and they break and they go home. Well, that still feels like my worship and my value of who I am as a Christian. We'll use in this example, right? That person still feels like they can go on and they accomplish the value of what they believe in there. Well, I'm not comparing fitness to religion, so don't hear me there, but the principle's the same in all of humanity. What we value, when we don't live up to that and we actually go against those values, we really feel like a part of us is been devalued, I guess would be a good word, right? We feel like we've gone against ourselves in that way. And so that's the key here, is that if you can live out a imperfect part of those habits that allow you to continue to keep the value of working out that is core to a lot of us, that is one of the best ways to go about doing this. Now, for some of us, we just live a more gracious life and we can just not work out at all, get back and feel really good. But for a lot of us, deep down, we are frustrated and angry at ourselves. I would try to argue that you not to do that to yourself, give yourself some grace. But the reality is that, like, the good part of that is that it has become a value to you. And when you don't do it, there's a little part of you that's that frustrated because it's that much more important to you than it was before. For a lot of people, working out is something that they feel like they should do, not necessarily something they want to do. But when people start doing it on vacation or doing it when they're not in their gym or their typical habitual environments, that really means that the person is evolving into a fitter person. And that means that it's actually become a deeper core value to them. And that is the mark of someone who is maturing in their fitness and maturing in their health of how to take care of themselves. So hope this was helpful today. Enjoyed getting to kind of process some of this just with myself. Hope it was helpful for you. If you're interested in ever working with one of our coaches and you want to take your fitness to the next level and you are tired of not feeling or moving or looking like an athlete again, then what we want to do is invite you to come on over to our website and fill out our application. Right there, you can actually have an opportunity to answer some questions, and then we will link up to send a discovery call to you where you can talk to me and I can link you up with one of our coaches that I think is the best match for you. So head on over to comebackathlete.com and you can fill out that application form. We also have some free giveaways on there that are some very valuable tools. So head on over and check that out. And then please like and subscribe, share, and we really appreciate that. We want to earn all 5 stars. So thank you.